Hi, I'm Natasha Rizopoulos, and I'm excited to show you a couple of great ways to both lengthen your hamstrings and create some openness and mobility in your shoulders. So Jasmine is in a version of Supta Padangusthasana where we're using the wall to do the work instead of the arms, because in the classical version of the pose, you either hold your big toe with your first two fingers of its own hand, or you use a strap along the ball of your foot. In either of those versions, if your hamstrings are tight and if you're holding the pose for any length of time, that can get very tiring for your arms and you can actually build up some tension in your shoulders. So if you know that tight hamstrings are an issue for you, it's great to use a wall like this, or you could use a doorway where you put one leg up the wall, keeping your hips on the floor, and you extend the other leg out along into the opening. So what's happening here is that the wall is actually helping to stretch the hamstrings and you're not having to do any work to pull the leg towards you. In this pose, you do want to make sure that your hips are on the ground and that the leg that is extended along the floor is in a neutral position rather than flopping open, and go ahead and show what that would look like. So you want to drop the inner thigh to the floor and keep the femur, the thigh bone, dropping heavily towards the floor, pressing up through the heel as you peel your toes down towards you. Now, if you wanted to also open your shoulders while you were lengthening your hamstrings, there's a nice thing you can do with a block, which is to hold the block overhead between your hands and not gripping it with your fingers, making kind of mitts with your hands. Keep your front ribs soft, because typically what happens is that when we're trying to open the shoulders, what we instead do is move the mobile part of the spine. So what you want to do is drop your front ribs so that you can isolate the movement in your shoulders. We're always going to move on an exhale and use an inhale to make sure that the arms are straight. So take an inhale here, squeeze your elbows straight, keeping your front ribs softening into your body. As you exhale, take the block overhead. Move slowly enough and consciously enough that you would notice the moment that your front ribs popped up and went along for the ride, creating movement in your spine instead of in your shoulders. Once you've taken the block as far as it'll go, keeping the elbows absolutely straight and the front ribs soft, take an inhale to emphasize the elbows straight, and as you exhale, bring the block back up so it's above your head. Take an inhale, squeeze the elbows straight. Exhale, take the arms back overhead. Always move on the exhale, because the exhale is the breath of exertion, and the exhale is the breath that allows you to soften your front ribs more easily. So if you were to do this and then use an exhale to come back up, if you were to do this every night, I would say that if you had your leg up for the amount of time it took you to do, let's say 10 or 15 of these dropping back and lifting back up, you would get a nice workout, a nice opening for your shoulders, and a very nice lengthening for your hamstrings. Then, of course, you would have to switch sides so you'd be even and do the same thing on the other side. So take an inhale here and then exhale, release.